Good morning, good evening, actually, everybody. My name is Max Boykin with Pride Action TV. Pride Action Tank is a part of AIDS Foundation of Chicago, and it is a really important in bringing LGBTQ issues important to people here in Chicago, including many different parts of the issues that affect LGBTQ people in Chicago, and thinking about how we can make things better for queer people in the city. With that, we are going to talk today about voting. We know that we have an election coming up on November 8th, and we can't wait to talk more about why is it really important for all people, but especially queer people in this city, to come out and vote for the important issues on November 8th. But at first, I would love for everyone to give a chance to look at our website, Pride Action Tank, which is, again, like I said, a project of the AIDS Foundation of Chicago, and the many issues that we do talk about, which include housing, health, youth, safety, aging, and financial security for LGBTQ people in the city. And like I said, today we will be talking about voting. Voting in the city of Chicago. And today we have an amazing guest from Chicago Votes. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. My name is Casimiro Peña. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Casimiro Peña, and I'm really happy and excited to talk about voting.
Thank you so very much for coming, Casimiro. I know that Chicago Votes has been doing some amazing work about getting young people, and especially young queer people, out to vote here in Chicago. Can you talk about some of those efforts that y'all been working on?
Yeah, so we're really excited that this year we've hosted 11 parades all across the city. We've been collaborating with CPS teachers and students all across CPS and Cook County. But on top of that, tomorrow we have our queer parade. Essentially, it's out of the bars into the streets. So it's our first of hopefully many more to come. So I hope everybody can make it. Tomorrow it's going to be at 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. We're meeting at Replay Bar, Beer and Lounge. So we're really excited about that. You get 25% off on drinks if you join us. And on top of that, there's going to be like free food. And on top of that, you get to come together as a community visibly and exercise your right to vote.
Thank you so very much for that. Could you talk a little bit more about why voting is really important to you?
So voting is really important to me. I would say that I have the ability to exercise a right that historically has been taken away, not only from myself, but also just different people from my family. So when I go out to the polls and I cast my ballot, I also feel that I'm casting my ballot for different family members that perhaps don't have that opportunity. And I'm also casting the ballot for many of those queer people who have advocated year after year, decades of work to get as far as we have. Last summer, 2015, we had this monumental moment in history where we have marriage equality.
Yes.
But the progress continues, so we have to keep hitting those ballots and keep moving forward.
Definitely. Thank you so very much for bringing that up. I know that voting is very important for me. I have family members who fought for the right to vote for them down south, and to make sure that their vote counted. And so that was really important for me to make sure that I understood the importance of going out to vote, because my grandparents fought for that right, my parents fought for that right, and I want to make sure that I have that right as well as young people in this country. Now, this is a big election year, presidential year. We've had a president who came out of Chicago for the last 8 years, but now we have a very important decision to make. But also, I understand that a lot of people aren't enthused about the two parties' presidential candidates. Can you talk a little bit more about some things that are down the ballot that aren't necessarily the president, that are really important for people to think about in this election this year?
So you are right. This is a very important year considering the presidential candidates. As Chicago Votes, we are nonpartisan, so we're not here to necessarily inform you on who to select, but give you the information. Yes, there are two presidential candidates, but we also have the Senate that we have to be thinking about, and we have Congress, and of course our state's attorney. Those are all different factions of the political infrastructure that are heavily important. So you have to consider: should we be taxing people? Raise taxes for people who make over $250,000 or not? Should we be repealing marriage equality? Is that an issue that you want to see happen or not? You have the ability to counteract some of these issues or not. So Yeah, so there's the local level and there's also the state level, and obviously there's the presidential level. Do you have any more specific questions?
Yeah, I think I want to definitely advocate to everyone to look down the ballot. I know in Chicago we have pages and pages of things to vote for, but we also understand that there's important things such as president, like Casimiro said, about the Senate, House of Representatives, state House, state Senate, and then there's also the judges. There's over 50 different judges that you can vote for, and we would love for people to look up the important and understand the importance of why there are different things to vote for, including all the judges and the referendums that are also on for folks to vote for. And I want to say the Pride Action Tank is also a nonprofit organization. And please call us at 312-738-1060 if you have any questions about election this year or questions for the Pride Action Tank or for our panelists. We'd love to answer them. So again, voting is really important for both of us. I know that. Can you tell me a little bit more about some things that y'all have worked on to get young people out to the polls this year? I know that the parades have been amazing, but I've also heard about some amazing outreach that y'all have done about talking to people about the importance about going out to vote.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to tell you about a program that I'm a part of called the Democracy Cup Fellowship. So in Chicago Votes, we have a team of 10 students that are all community organizers of all from different backgrounds. And what we're doing is we're entering the classroom and working with CPS teachers. And what we're doing is we're co-creating civics curriculums to gauge students on topics that they're interested in, gauging them on those topics, and then we actually have these parades to then take kind of that right to passage is what we've been framing it around. You know, this for a lot of these students, they're turning 18, and it's that first moment where you get to exercise your democratic right to vote, many of which have died so you can have that right. We're actually really excited about a grant we recently received. We'll be working with high school students to create art projects around any social and political issues that they're interested in, and we're going to be inviting elected officials at a public venue to discuss these and unpack this, and also emphasize the importance of art and social justice in that nexus.
Got you. Yes, I think it's really important that when we talk about the connections of arts along with other things when we're talking about the importance of going out to vote. And it does look like we have our first caller. I would love to bring him on.
Hey, I have a question. So, as a queer Chicagoan, it's really important for me to vote, but I worry about those members of the community out there who don't have that right in this country, those who are undocumented or, so what do you kind of talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so definitely. Honestly, that's a big passion I have. You know, there's a lot of close people that I live with that don't have that right and can't exercise that right. But there are economic policies that are being created that determine how detention centers are ran and how people's gender expression is going to be considered in the political infrastructure, and whether or not they're going to end up in certain centers that acknowledge their gender expression or not, and they can be exposed to a lot more violence. So I'm definitely right there with you. And that's why it's important that we really come out to vote, and that we bring our state's ID, and that we don't allow voter suppression to really hold back some of these issues that we're passionate about.
Tubby, could you talk a little bit more as a person of color going out to vote? And we hear a lot about voter suppression in other states, especially down south, but also have understood that some people deal with voter suppression here in the city of Chicago and in the state of Illinois, and talk about what are ways in which people can deal with that they are feeling like they are being voter suppressed. Who can they reach out to?
So some of the people that you can reach out to is definitely your alderman. That's who they're there for. They get paid to work for us. So reach out to your alderman if you have any questions, or you feel that a certain polling location is pushing people away, or they're cutting down lines, etc. But also, there's a lot of myths around voting that is a part of social around this voter suppression. One of these myths, for example, is that if you have a criminal background and you cannot vote. That has been repealed. It's been since 2014 that people with criminal backgrounds can vote again. Yes. A lot of people, I did canvassing for the first time here in the city of Chicago, very excited about that.
Yes.
And I heard commonly that people were saying, oh, I can't vote, and they haven't been voting. They're like, yeah, I've been wanting to vote for the past 5 years, but I haven't done it. And for the past 3, they could have. So deconstructing some of these myths, contacting your alderman, And definitely going online, you know, there's the AmericanVoterGuide.org/Illinois. It lays out your state's attorney information, where they stand on issues, where they stand on whether or not we're going to criminalize or decriminalize certain offenses. And again, those are really those issues that affect not only brown and black folks, but the queer people within those communities, the black and brown community, are really taking the brunt of things like police brutality, things like violence within detention centers and immigration and deportation.
Thank you so very much. It looks like we have another caller. Next question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. Can you tell me what are the most important issues for queer people in this election?
Wow. Thank you so very much for that very, very deep, good question. Go ahead.
So there is no absolute answer to that. You know, I was looking at some polls today that demonstrate there has been an increase of about 20% of gay Americans are intending to vote on the right-hand side. So they're intending to vote for the Republican Party. And then on the left side, you obviously have a vast amount of LGBTQ people that have been in the Democratic Party for a long time. So we see that even within our community, there's a spectrum of political ideas, and people fall all across that. But what, to me, coming here today, I was thinking about that very same question. Why is it important that queer people generally should vote? And I think the answer is visibility. You know, this year, Pulse happened. And there was many lives were taken from us, from our community. And I think that stresses the importance. You know, it's a year later, a year after we just received marriage equality, we see a club featuring black, brown, Latinx people being murdered. So I really think that visibility is incredibly important, which is why I think everybody in Chicago should turn out tomorrow. Bring your friends, bring your family to the queer parade and out of the bars into the streets, 12 p.m. North Halsted at the Replay Bar. Visibility is incredibly important. We need to not allow that things like Pulse and the rhetoric that has been spoken in this campaign to diffuse and minimize our pride and allow that culture of fear to disable our civic engagement.
Thank you so very much for that. And I think to add on to that, I think every part of the what we're voting for, as a person who has recently voted in this election, I would also say judges. There's plenty of judges to vote for. Definitely look out for that. There are multiple places that you can go. Ballotready.com. I know that people can go there and figure out, you know, learn more about candidates, but also judges to vote for, and the different referendums, one including about fully funding of CPS, and we know queer people have kids too, and they have kids that are going to school, and we know that is truly important. We want to make sure that people have a chance to understand that that's an important piece on this election this year, along with so many other issues. But definitely do your research. Ballotready.com ballotready.org is the website that you should definitely go to look into that. That would be really important for people that are understanding everything that they are voting for. All you have to do is really know your address, put it in, and they can help you with all the different things that you'll be electing or voting for in that ballot box. And there's quite a bit. So I want to definitely make sure that people understand that. I had a friend today hit me up, was like, hey, I don't know who I should vote for. What's going on? I need some more information. Sent them a couple websites so they would make sure that they understand the importance of this. We have another caller on the line. Go ahead.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi. Thanks so much for taking my call. I guess my question is, in terms of what's at stake in this election, both candidates for president have identified themselves as LGBT-friendly people in terms of their platforms and their stances, and I just kind of wanted to know, when evaluating someone's fitness as a candidate, what sorts of things do you look for when considering someone an advocate of the community?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, if I heard you correctly, I think you said that both candidates support marriage equality, like LGBTQ community.
So said they're LGBTQ friendly.
Okay, I think that's subjective. If we could, that's subjective whether or not both candidates are LGBTQ friendly. I did read today that one of the candidates came out with a anti-LGBTQ. It was a First Amendment freedom expression. So essentially, I think I would disagree that they're both LGBTQ friendly, but I would encourage you to look into the issues, and you can kind of discern that whether you agree, and look at the rhetoric that both candidates are employing. And I do think that the distinction is pretty clear.
I would also add to that that there are issues that affect people within the LGBTQ community. If you are LGBTQ and a woman, if you are LGBTQ and brown or black in this country, that also may look differently for you and how this election stacks up. And there's also other parties. We do not pick either party or say that there are multiple parties that the Libertarian Green Party is also on the election. So there is no one party or two parties that we would tell people to look into. People can look into all parties and look into all candidates for each of the positions. And also, I mean, there's controller, there's clerks, there's multiple positions, not just on the presidential side to look into, but definitely look into the issues that are most important to you. We know that queer people are not a monolith. They have multiple different capacities within that, and we want to make sure that I would tell anyone to vote for the person who aligns best with all the different identities that one has.
And I would just to add, like, there is one issue that I think is especially important, and I would say that is bringing anti-discrimination policy into the employment. So essentially, we still have sex and gender discrimination in the workforce, and there's one candidate supports eliminating that, and one candidate doesn't. And also, you can look at AmericanVoterGuide.org/Illinois. You can see that there's also senators, and you can see their stances on whether or not they support LGBTQ anti-discrimination policies. And I think that right now is kind of the direction that LGBTQ people have been organizing against, but I also think that we have to look at those interlocking sections of oppression, considering like things like, again, police brutality, detention centers, and issues of immigration.
Thank you so very much for elaborating a little bit more on that, and understanding that, like I said, there's also a big race here in the state of Illinois for Illinois State Senate. Illinois Senate, representing there in D.C. Between sitting Senator Mark Kirk, who is a Republican, and a current House of Representative member, Tammy Duckworth. And I know their last debate is tonight. And I also know that Chicago Votes is hosting another event right now at the Chicago Urban League, and I think it goes till 8 p.m. So if you live on the south side of the city and you want to learn a little bit more about this, and it's from a coalition of many organizations, including Chicago Votes, are there right now talking about the importance of voting for millennials coming out to vote. And this is again at the Urban League on the south side of the city. So if you'd like to go that from 6 to 8 today, that would be also a great thing to do. Thank you again for coming in. This has been a really great thing. What are some other things that you want people to do, even think about after Election Day? What are some of the things that they should be thinking about next steps after they get done voting? What should they be doing afterwards?
So yeah, looking forward, I think that's the exciting part. You know, it is, my professor, she gave me a new framework of thinking for this election. A lot of people are thinking, I want to pick a certain candidate because that's who I want. But it's more like, who, honestly for myself, is who am I going to fight for the next 4 years, not who am I going to serve for the next 4 years, who is going to serve me for the next 4 years. So this is that opportunity to keep our elected officials accounted and keep them accountable to the issues-based campaigns that they held. So again, that looks like increasing civic engagement, doing canvassing, spreading information, advocacy. It looks like supporting local state policies on issues of economics, homeless shelters, releasing grants so that nonprofits can operate, things of that nature, I would say.
Thank you so very much. And it looks like we have one more caller. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. This has been extremely informative. I wanted to have a question. Could you guys speak to the myth that youth don't actually turn out to vote in elections? I know that oftentimes people say, oh, we need to rally youth, but then politicians say, but they don't vote. Can you guys speak to kind of the myth of youth apathy in terms of voting?
Definitely. I think that's actually really, really important. Too common, we hear like, I don't want to talk about politics, or I'm not about politics, I don't care about those things. But whether or not you care, they affect you. And whether or not you're directly interested in those things are directly interested in you and how they define you and classify you. I think that, and people just aren't really aware, and they aren't aware of the implications of low voter turnouts. Because when democracy only works if we all participate, and I think that's the disconnection. And I think, like, honestly, some parties in this election are really, really accounting and depending on low voter turnout. So democracy only works if we show up to the polls, and I think we should do it with pride. Tomorrow we're queering it out. I'm going to be there in my heels. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to queer it out, though. So I definitely think there is a lot of apathy, and I think some of the ways to combat that is to increase the value we share in exercising our democratic right to vote. I think there's honestly across the country a devaluing. This week was really exciting to see thousands of people pour into the streets of Chicago, and I really hope that I could see a quarter of that come November 8th.
That would be amazing and great. And I think also when we think about youth, Chicago Votes has been doing an amazing job about getting young people registered to vote throughout this year and prior elections to make sure that people are coming out. And I know also at the AIDS Foundation of Chicago, we worked through the Voting Matters for Sex in coalition with other organizations to really make sure that young people understood the importance of going out to vote in general in this election and many elections moving forward. So again, come out tomorrow. Definitely come out tomorrow. I think that's going to be a great time to really get out, get the vote out. So join Chicago Votes for their Queer to the Polls tomorrow. And then don't forget and tell all your friends that on November 8th, go out and vote. And we can't wait to see the results of an election that will be definitely one to remember. Thank y'all so very much, and see us again every first Friday of the month. See y'all soon.
Thank you. Farewell.